Good morning, and welcome to The Debate.
Good morning.
If you look at global social media today, people are frankly terrified. I mean, they think North Korea is on the absolute brink of starting a third world war.
It is definitely the prevailing sentiment online right now.
Exactly. But if you look at the South Korean stock market, local traders are completely ignoring the rhetoric. The markets are entirely stable. So what is the reality? We will examine that today. But first, this broadcast is brought to you by ProWave AI and generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
Right. And to provide some necessary context for our listeners right at the top, Stylo News is the consumer version of the Stylo Intel Ops software. That platform is, well, it is traditionally designed for enterprise operations across government, military, and business sectors.
Which is quite a pedigree.
It is, absolutely. What this means is that today you are getting unique, direct access to a tool designed to support global decision makers. You are basically utilizing the exact intelligence streams that shape international policy.
And our strategic focus today rests squarely on those intelligence estimates, specifically those spanning May and June of 2026. The central question we must answer is this: is North Korea primarily focused on regime survival, or is it actively positioning itself to reshape the balance of power in Northeast Asia?
A critical distinction to make.
I represent the latter view. When you look at this data, it is hard not to see a regime that has entirely outgrown mere self-preservation. By actively utilizing a deepening alliance with the Russian Federation and executing rapid, highly sophisticated military modernization, I see a Pyongyang that is operating as a regional aggressor.
Well, I look at the exact same intelligence data and arrive at a much more measured conclusion.
Which is?
That North Korea's actions right now, while certainly provocative, no one is denying that, are fundamentally calculated acts of coercive deterrence. These maneuvers are designed solely to ensure the survival of the Kim dynasty in an increasingly hardening geopolitical environment.
You see it purely as defensive.
I do. I mean, they are managing a profound domestic fragility by projecting an illusion of overwhelming outward strength. It is a survival mechanism.
Let us look at the mechanics of how they are projecting that strength. Because the data from May 2026 paints a picture of a state that is deeply embedding itself into a revisionist bloc. I mean, we have reports detailing a $20 billion barter-based trade agreement with Russia slated for 2025.
Right, the barter agreement.
Yes, and in this arrangement, North Korea is supplying artillery, missiles, and actual ground troops. In exchange, they are receiving oil, food, and, most critically, advanced military technology. They have even formally amended their constitution to irrevocably cement their nuclear status.
They have, yes.
And by doing so, they are forcing the region into an arms race. This is starkly evidenced by Seoul's new defense initiative to launch its first nuclear-powered submarine by the mid-2030s.
I hear the scale of those numbers, and they are significant. But I think we have to ask why they are entering into these agreements in the first place. A calm, fact-based assessment reveals that this posturing is, well, defensive signaling.
Defensive? Supplying troops to a foreign war is defensive?
If we look at the daily intelligence summaries, there is a consistent lack of corroborating evidence for imminent war. Think about it. If a nation is actually preparing to reshape a region through conflict, there are logistical realities that simply cannot be hidden.
You mean troop movements?
Exactly. Yet we observe no large-scale reserve call-ups, we see no unusual fuel or ammunition dispersal surges anywhere in the country, there are no mass maneuver assemblies near the demilitarized zone. The absence of these indicators strongly suggests their overarching goal remains preservation, not regional domination.
I understand looking for traditional troop mobilizations, but I think we need to recognize that the nature of their alliances has fundamentally shifted the timeline and the battlefield.
How so?
Well, look at the late May 2026 meeting in Moscow between North Korean Foreign Minister Cho Son-hui and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is no longer just transactional bartering. It has evolved into a formal, mutual defense alignment.
It is a significant diplomatic shift, true.
It is massive. Pyongyang has publicly endorsed Russian retaliation against Kiev. And crucially, Our intelligence is monitoring the near completion of the Kasan-Tumenggung Bridge Corridor.
But that bridge is exactly my point. It is a lifeline.
It is much more than a lifeline. We have to explain how that overland rail link changes the entire geopolitical calculus for the region.
Go ahead. Historically, maritime shipping into North Korea has been highly vulnerable to interdiction by the U.S. Navy and allied forces, enforcing United Nations sanctions. But by completing a heavy rail bridge across the Tumen River directly into Russia, Pyongyang is establishing a logistics corridor that is entirely immune to maritime interdiction.
Immune to naval blockade, yes.
Right. Short of a direct kinetic strike, which would be an act of war against a nuclear-armed Russia, that supply line cannot be severed. That is the architecture of an axis, securing an unimpeded flow of materials to sustain a long-term offensive posture.
That is a compelling logistical analysis, I will admit, but I view this entirely through the lens of opportunistic sanctions evasion.
Opportunistic?
Yes? The alliance provides Pyongyang with a necessary economic and technological lifeline that it simply cannot secure anywhere else. You mentioned the $20 billion trade agreement. If you look closely, we are essentially looking at an exchange of excess, aging Soviet-era artillery stockpiles for fundamental necessities.
You think it is just a clearance sale?
Basically, yes. They are trading cold iron for oil and food to prevent internal collapse. And the public endorsements of Moscow's war efforts, that is purely diplomatic cover. It is a low-cost verbal concession to keep the physical supplies flowing across that very uninterdictable bridge you just mentioned.
I am not convinced it is merely a matter of clearing out aging stockpiles, because that ignores the physical reality of the personnel exports. If the goal is simply inward-looking survival, why export trained troops and advanced ballistic missiles to a European conflict?
To secure capital.
But a regime that is purely focused on internal stability, one fending off an imminent threat, would logically hoard its most capable deterrence and its trained personnel right around Pyongyang. Deploying military power into the Ukrainian theater crosses a distinct line from passive survival into the realm of active global disruption.
That assumes they are deploying their very best assets, which is debatable.
Even so, their troops are gaining invaluable modern combat experience in a drone-heavy electronic warfare environment. That is not just trading iron for oil. That is actively modernizing their tactical doctrine for future use in Northeast Asia.
I see why you think that, but let me offer a different framing. Exporting troops and munitions is for Pyongyang fundamentally a currency exchange.
A very dangerous currency.
Yes, but they are not projecting power into Europe out of some ideological ambition to disrupt the global order. They are trading blood for the technological assets they absolutely require to survive at home. The intelligence explicitly notes that Russian assistance may accelerate North Korean weapons development.
Which proves my point, does it not?
Not necessarily. That development is the true prize for them. They're exploiting a distraction. And as for the troops gaining experience, well, it is essentially a live-fire data collection mission to understand how their legacy systems fare against modern Western countermeasures. It is a defensive learning exercise, not the vanguard of a global conquest.
Well, if it is a defensive learning exercise, they are applying those lessons with alarming speed. Which brings us to the actual hardware they are developing.
The May launches?
Yes, we have to look at the factual events of May 26, 2026. North Korea launched multiple projectiles, including short-range ballistic missiles, directly into the Yellow Sea. Intelligence confirms near operational status of uranium enrichment facilities at Yongbyon.
The Yongbyon status is certainly concerning.
And mid-June marks the imminent commissioning of North Korea's largest destroyer, the Choe-Kyeon. A coastal defense force uses patrol boats. A state building a destroyer with vertical launch systems is aggressively pursuing blue water power projection and sea denial capabilities.
Let me stop you there, because the public sentiment data surrounding these exact hardware developments is highly instructive. We are seeing a stark divide between global and local reactions.
You are referring to the social media metrics?
Exactly. If you analyze international users on the X platform, you see a highly alarmist environment. People are using World War III hashtags, panicking over unverified claims regarding a North Korean automated nuclear retaliation system.
The so-called dead hand system.
Right. Yet if we look at the South Korean financial markets, specifically the Kospi Index and the valuation of the Korean won, we see complete, unbothered stability. The local population is not mobilizing.
I fail to see how market stability negates the physical existence of a destroyer.
It proves that the region, the people who understand Pyongyang's behavioral patterns better than anyone, recognizes these actions as routine, calibrated deterrence. It is noise designed to look like an imminent threat, like a puffer fish inflating itself to avoid being eaten.
Market complacency is a psychological coping mechanism, not a missile defense system. A calm stock market does not intercept a ballistic missile.
True, but it reflects risk assessment.
The risk is real. The near operational status at Yongbyon fundamentally changes the math. More enriched uranium means faster warhead miniaturization. That means they can deploy these weapons on the tactical cruise missiles they have been consistently testing. They are fielding new long-range artillery capable of blanketing the Seoul metropolitan area by year-end.
I acknowledge the advancement in the hardware itself, but we have to understand the mechanism of how they are actually utilizing it. I look at this strategy less like a traditional military buildup and much more like, well, high-frequency algorithmic trading in the financial sector.
Algorithmic trading, that is quite a leap.
Bear with me. In algorithmic trading, systems automatically execute calibrated probes and escalations to test the market, trigger automatic responses, and secure a fractional advantage without ever actually crashing the system. Pyongyang is executing algorithmic deterrence.
By firing missiles?
Yes, they test a hypersonic engine, they parade new artillery, they launch garbage balloons across the border. Which, by the way, is a brilliant piece of sub-threshold warfare. It annoys and disrupts South Korean airspace, but it stays perfectly below the threshold that would trigger a kinetic military response.
So you are saying the hardware is just a prop for this algorithmic deterrence?
Exactly. Kim Jong-un recently directed his division commanders to build an impregnable fortress along the southern border. They are simply raising the cost of intervention.
But the sheer volume of these actions.
They execute these calibrated escalations whenever they sense a drop in their geopolitical leverage. It keeps adversaries constantly off balance. They inflate their military profile precisely because they are inherently vulnerable. They know a full-scale war results in the immediate end of the Kim dynasty. This display is their only guarantee of continued existence.
That is a fascinating analogy, I will grant you that. But algorithmic trading can still trigger a flash crash that takes down the entire market. Even if their intentions are purely defensive, their actions are forcing a fundamental restructuring of the security environment, which objectively alters the balance of power.
In what specific ways?
Look at how the region is being forced to respond. South Korea's 2026 Unification White Paper has officially shifted to acknowledge a two-separate states reality.
Which is a profound diplomatic shift, I agree.
It is a massive departure from decades of established doctrine. For half a century, Seoul's policy viewed the North as an errant province destined for reunification. Acknowledging them as a separate, hostile state shifts the South Korean defense posture from stabilization to pure, hard deterrence.
It is a necessary reality check for Seoul.
And it has cascading effects. We are also looking at the accelerated transfer of wartime operational control, or OPCON, to South Korea by 2029. Pushing this transfer means South Korea is rapidly accelerating its own defense spending, which is why we are seeing the aggressive push for the nuclear-powered submarine. North Korea has successfully forced the United States, Japan, and South Korea into a tighter, heavily strained military posture.
But you are omitting the most crucial stabilizing mechanism in this entire regional equation.
Which is?
The Chinese government. The intelligence points toward an anticipated visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping to Pyongyang in late May or early June of 2026. We can talk about Russian alliances and new destroyers all morning, but China remains the ultimate tether on North Korea.
A tether that is perhaps loosening.
Not economically, Beijing still provides up to 95% of North Korea's legitimate trade. They control the physical energy pipelines that literally keep the lights on in Pyongyang.
True, but the dynamic is shifting with Moscow in the picture.
It is shifting, but the underlying economic reality remains absolute. China is pursuing a highly balanced diplomatic approach. They will ensure the Kim regime survives because a collapsed, nuclear-armed North Korea and a potentially unified U.S.-allied Korea right on their border is an unacceptable security nightmare for Beijing.
Of course, Beijing wants a buffer state.
Exactly. However, Beijing will actively prevent Pyongyang from starting an uncontrolled regional war that would disrupt China's own economic and strategic goals. North Korea operates on a leash, and Beijing holds it.
I hear that. But I think we are giving Beijing entirely too much credit for controlling a leash that might already be severely fraying.
You think Pyongyang is going rogue?
I think we must analyze why the Russian alliance is so dangerous to that specific status quo. By solidifying a mutual defense pact and an uninterdictable rail supply line with Moscow, Pyongyang is actively breaking the Chinese monopoly on its survival. They are diversifying their geopolitical portfolio.
They are playing Beijing and Moscow against each other?
Exactly.
Diversifying, yes, but for what ultimate end? Survival.
No, to carve out a position as an independent, aggressive regional power broker. The intelligence notes that North Korea's current behavior objectively benefits Beijing by fixing U.S., South Korean, and Japanese military attention in Northeast Asia.
It certainly ties up Western resources.
Right. Every American carrier strike group deployed to monitor a North Korean missile test is a carrier strike group not patrolling the Taiwan Strait. Pyongyang knows this. They are leveraging the great power competition between the U.S., China, and Russia to secure maximum freedom of maneuver. They are no longer just the client state. They're actively dictating the security tempo of the region.
They are dictating the tempo, certainly, but I maintain it is only to maximize their leverage for survival. Let us look at the integration of artificial intelligence into their cruise missile guidance systems, or the increasingly harsh rhetoric labeling Seoul the arch-enemy.
Both highly aggressive postures.
Aggressive, yes, but they are designed to project absolute strength from a position of profound economic and infrastructural fragility. The intelligence summaries repeatedly conclude with medium confidence that a deliberate, large-scale attack on South Korea remains unlikely.
Medium confidence is hardly a guarantee.
It is not, but the core assessment remains that Pyongyang benefits from maintaining high-pressure crisis conditions without ever actually triggering a war it knows it cannot physically sustain. It is aggressive, yes, but it is fundamentally, carefully calibrated deterrence.
Well, we have explored the data thoroughly, and we should summarize the implications of these intelligence estimates.
Agreed.
I maintain that the data from May and June 2026 demonstrates an active, deliberate reshaping of global security by Pyongyang. When you combine their robust barter economy with Russia, their export of military assets to European conflicts to gain modern battlefield data, and the rapid, undeniable physical expansion of their nuclear and naval capabilities.
The destroyer and the enrichment facilities.
Exactly. Evidenced by the Cho-Ho-Yan destroyer and Yongbyan's status, we see a state transitioning. North Korea has moved from a posture of simple preservation to one of active regional aggression, successfully forcing neighboring states to drastically alter their historical defense doctrines.
And I reaffirm that a dispassionate review of the exact same intelligence points to an aggressive, highly calibrated strategy of deterrence aimed strictly at preserving the Kim dynasty.
The pufferfish strategy.
Precisely. The total lack of logistical mobilization for an actual war, the reliance on sub-threshold tactics like the border fortification directives, and the fundamental, inescapable economic reliance on China all indicate a regime utilizing extreme signaling. They are executing algorithmic deterrence, inflating their threat profile to ensure they are never tested in a conflict that would inevitably lead to their destruction.
As always on this podcast, we do not declare a victor in these discussions. The intelligence has been presented, the mechanisms behind the geopolitical maneuvers have been debated, and we leave it to you, our audience, to weigh the facts and form your own conclusions regarding the future of Northeast Asia.
It is certainly a complex situation with plenty more to explore in the raw data.
Absolutely. And if you want to review the primary intelligence streams we discussed today and form your own analysis, we highly encourage you to utilize Stylo News. Stylo News is available as both a mobile and desktop application that you can download directly.
It is a fantastic tool.
It really is. It allows you to customize your feed to receive personal, intelligence-style briefs. It aggregates factual data from hundreds of traditional news sources globally, while also providing real-time sentiment analysis from social platforms like X. So, if you want to cut through the panic and get calm, AI-powered news on demand, we urge you to subscribe by visiting www.stylonews.com.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in with us today, everyone. We really appreciate you spending your Friday with us, diving into this heavy but, incredibly important material.
Absolutely. We love doing these deep dives into the mechanics of global intelligence, and we want to know what you want to hear about next. Drop us a line, submit your requests and questions for future topics, and please, make sure to follow Stylo News on whatever social media platform you prefer.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
And remember, when you look at the geopolitical radar, you always have to ask yourself, are you seeing a gathering storm or just a lot of carefully calibrated thunder? Take care, everyone.